Yesterday, I showed you that when the price of your home goes up, the value doesn't necessarily go up too. It's actually mostly just an illusion that the value is going up. It's not actually making you more wealthy. We're doing a follow-up video today to show you how to actually turn your home into a cash flowing asset, one that actually does increase your wealth. Now, there's a lot of different options for doing this, and I'm just gonna be showing you a few, and I recognize there's an infinite number of scenarios that you might be in specifically. But the purpose of this video is to just give you some ideas. We'll be going over 6 different options and outlining what those strategies are. And then at the end, we'll compare your net worth with each one of those strategies. All of our situations are very unique and we have different goals. We also have different varying degrees of risk tolerance for how much we're able to be levered and the capacity for holding these different financial situations that may be more complex than we're used to. So that being said, these options will showcase kind of different flavors for risk tolerance. One more thing I need to mention is that in my last video, when I was comparing the price of the house over the last 5 years and how much you gained in price, I was adjusting for inflation. In this video, I am not adjusting for inflation. We're only going to be dealing with the nominal price, just to keep it simple. And we're going to be doing the same thing where we go back to 2020, and then over the course of 5 years, we'll look at the performance from a price perspective to see what those look like. Back to the whiteboard. All right, so first, the setup of all of these scenarios. Remember, we are the proud new owners of a house that we purchased in early 2020. The house price was listed for $300,000. We had a $100,000 down payment, so that means we have $100K equity immediately in the home. I'm only including that $100K down payment and $100K equity item because we'll be using it for some scenarios. But on the final comparison of everything we're doing, we won't be considering those numbers in that. We're only going to be looking at the asset prices themselves, just to simplify things. And also, all of these scenarios that I'm going to go over, we're going to assume that they all happened at basically the same time in 2020. So we took action and we got stuff done, and that way we can calculate using the same numbers and just keep it nice and simple for the comparison. Our first scenario here is our base case, and I'm calling it our traditional option 0. This is the scenario that most Americans are in, where you just live in your home, you work a job, and you pay your mortgage. So you're not getting any additional cash flow from your home. It's not really an asset at this point. This is the exact scenario that I showed in my last video. Scenario 2 is named traditional option 1. This is where you move out of your home and you rent your property. So now someone else pays off the property for you. They assume essentially paying your mortgage. And you might get a little cash flow on top of that depending on how that all works out. But regardless, you own the house while someone else is paying it off. Scenario number 3 is traditional option 1 plus. So it's basically the same exact thing as the last one, except for in this scenario, whenever you move out and start renting the house, you also use the equity in your home. Remember the $100,000? You have that available to pull out and then use that to get into a second rental property. So now you have 2 rental properties by leveraging your first one. This is actually something that's very common among people who build businesses out of rental properties. And it's a really smart move because it increases the velocity of your money by leveraging the equity in the properties that you have. Scenario number 4 is called Bitcoin option 1. So this is the scenario where maybe you don't feel like you want to manage a rental house, but you do want to get some more value and growth out of your asset. So what you could do is sell your house and then use the equity from that sale to buy Bitcoin. And remember, that's $100,000 worth that you could purchase. Scenario number 5 is Bitcoin option 2. So this is where you move out and rent your property, and you also use the 100K equity to buy Bitcoin. So this is similar to the traditional option where we bought a second rental, but now instead of owning a second real estate property, you own digital property. And finally, we get to scenario number 6. This is Bitcoin option 2 plus. So a continuation of the last one, we are now taking that $100,000 worth of Bitcoin and using it as collateral for a down payment on a second rental property. So whenever we use Bitcoin as collateral, you can expect to get around $50,000 from this, since most Bitcoin collateralized loans are currently at 50% loan to value ratio. So if you put up $100,000 as collateral, you'll get $50,000. And Bitcoin loans are pretty amazing actually, because there's no credit checks. You're just using pristine capital and you get quick access to your funds. So in this scenario, you end up with 2 rental properties and $100,000 worth of Bitcoin that you still own. Okay, so before we actually get all this tallied up, we have a few more variables that we need to define. We're saying that the average rent for our original $300,000 home is $2,000 per month. So we'll use that to just kind of show cash flow of the assets. And then single family home compound annual growth rate is 9%. That's a value that we went over in the last video. So check that out if you need more clarification. Bitcoin compound annual growth rate over the last 5 years was 62%. And then our rental home prices, we're just defining those as the same as our original home, $300,000. Let's take a look at all this information in a spreadsheet. So we're looking at our assets under management, and we'll be looking at cash flow for each of these options. Our real estate starting value, Bitcoin starting value, total starting value, and then the total ending value, and then we'll see the total gain across 5 years. So for our first option, 0, our base case where we just own the house and pay the mortgage, we only own the house, and so our starting value is $300,000 and ending value $423,000. So we gained about $123,000. Now for the next one, this is where we just have one rental. Our cash flow per month is $2,000, whereas before we had 0, so that's good. But other than that, everything else is the same because we just have the same single asset. We're just getting some cash flow. So our total gain is still $123,000. Okay, so if we bump over here, our traditional option 1 plus is where we have 2 rentals. So our cash flow is now doubled from the previous scenario. And also our real estate starting value is doubled. So we have $600,000 worth of real estate. So at the end of the 5 years, we have a total of about $847,000, and that's a gain of $247,000. And if we keep going here, let's look at our Bitcoin option 1. So this is the one where we just decided to sell the house, and we put that $100,000 into Bitcoin. And at the end of the 5 years, that Bitcoin got up to a value of about $689,000. And that is a gain of $589,000. So now if we look at Bitcoin option number 2, where we have a single rental and Bitcoin, now we have some cash flow, whereas before we didn't have any cash flow from our Bitcoin. So we have the cash flow from our rental. Initial starting of our real estate is $300,000. Initial starting of Bitcoin is $100. Our total is $400. And our total value at the end of the 5 years for this option, we'll just call it $1.1 million, with a gain of about $712,000. And finally, if we look at Bitcoin option number 2, this is the scenario where we ended up with 2 rentals and the Bitcoin. Our cash flow is now doubled again from that previous one, and we now again have 2 rentals, so our value there is $600,000. Our Bitcoin is still 100, and our total assets under management starting out is worth $700,000. After 5 years, that's worth $1.5 million, with a total gain of about $836,000. It's pretty awesome what you can do when you get creative with leveraging your assets. Let me know in the comments if you came up with any good ideas for your situation.